I've been playing Marvel Snap for 10 months, and throughout that entire time, I've made custom cards. I've never done a custom card video before. I've posted 20 card sets, 70 card sets. I've posted a lot of custom cards online, and I never really thought to make YouTube videos about those custom cards. But I've been inspired by two folks. One is Tech, who's actually covered my custom cards before on his YouTube videos, which is crazy to think about. And another content creator, Drewberry, who actually does a lot of custom card content. His audience submits custom cards every single week, and he goes over them and talks about his favorite aspects of them. It's really cool to see that type of community engagement around custom card content. So I want to go over some of my oldest designs. I'll be looking at my first 20 card set and just going over the first 10 cards in that set, talking about my thought process and whether I like the cards still today. If the feedback on this video is good, I'll go back and I'll do the other 10 cards that were in my very first set. It's gonna be weird looking back at these cards because it was such a different time. So many of us had a very different perception of the game than we do now. I mean, it's literally been 10 months since the game came out. So obviously perceptions have changed quite a lot. All right, let's start off with Bug. Bug is a 1/3 each turn. If you don't play a card here, destroy this. All right, this card's a little bit less silly than it seems, but man, I feel like I would never print a card like this today. At the time, what I wanted was another 1 energy 3 power card. I wanted to give some more support to the idea of Cerebro 3, which really wants 3 power cards that it can cheaply play. You could even run Armor in a Cerebro 3 deck alongside Bug. You go turn 1 Bug, turn 2 Armor, essentially protecting your Bug for the rest of the game. But even outside of Cerebro gameplay, you could simply just play Bug on turn 6, making his restriction a little silly from a design perspective anyway. Again, I absolutely wouldn't print this card today, if not literally just because of that. You can play him on turn 6, completely nullifying his downside. Maybe that's fine, I don't know. Again, I wouldn't print this card today, but I would like to see some more cheap cards that are able to destroy themselves. I've done a lot of science with Null, and Atuma is just a little bit too expensive that I never end up actually making him in my final cut of a Null deck. Perhaps a cheaper card with more power, with a similar effect to Atuma, would actually be able to make it into a fully established Null deck. So maybe I wasn't actually too far off the mark here. I'm not sure. Moving on to Tigra, and oh god, this card is by far the worst card that we'll be going over in this video. God, this design absolutely stinks. She is a 1/4. This starts at the bottom of your deck. When a card is destroyed next turn, draw this. So she stays at the bottom of the deck, but if something's destroyed, she moves to the top. Now this happens, this is a mirrored effect. If you destroy something, or if your opponent destroys something, Tigra will move to the top of your deck. So she sits at the bottom of your deck, and she essentially just thins your deck. And I thought the effect being mirrored would be a big enough downside that you more or less, quote unquote, brick the Tigra player. If they're putting Tigra in their deck, they're doing it to thin their deck. So if you destroy something, you're hurting them pretty substantially. But a 1/4 is kind of just fine. How much of a brick is that? It's not much at all, right? I mean, it sucks if they're trying to go for a specific combo and you destroy something, but yeah, there's just too much about this design that sucks, and the sooner we move on, the better. Wiccan is a 1/1 on reveal. If you play a card here next turn, add a copy of the bottom card of your deck to your hand. Now, this is a really scary effect for Marvel Snap. Anything that draws you a card or effectively draws you a card should be added very cautiously to Marvel Snap because of its small deck size. We're working with 12 cards and you can get one of the cards from the bottom of your deck. The efficiency of your deck is significantly increased. With that said, I don't think this card would be too broken at, say, maybe like 2-0 or even 3-0. Heck, maybe 3-0 is even too weak, but it is a spooky effect. Of all the cards that we're going to go over in this video and possibly future videos, there's a group of cards that I wouldn't want printed now, either because the concept sucked or it's just not right for Snap. It's, you know, it's not a Marvel Snap card. Wiccan is one of those cards, like it belongs in that category. Like I wouldn't want Wiccan actually printed to the game, but it's actually not too far off. Like it's just barely in that category, I think. Hercules is a 10/6 with the effect this costs 1 less for each card your opponent controls. Honestly, I think this could still be put in the game today. It has a bit of a design overlap with cards that discount themselves like Death and She-Hulk, but I think that's okay. The card might find its home in decks that want to give the opponent cards, things like Black Widow, Debris, and Goblin, and then obviously it has really positive interactions with Wave as well. You might have to adjust the numbers a little bit, but I think this card is off to a good start. Agent Venom is a 2/2, and his effect is when you play a card here, afflict a random enemy card with -1 power. I like the idea of more cards that reward you for playing cards at a single location. So for example, a card like Angela. I wanted to incentivize the player to run both cards like Angela and Agent Venom in the same deck, and then run cards like Kitty Pryde, Nightcrawler, and Vision to get value out of the effect of playing them there, and then having them exit that location, either from movement or picking them up from the hand or something like that. I also wanted more cards that afflicted the enemy with minus power, but I don't think these two ideas needed to be on the same card. Moving on to Bombshell. Bombshell is a 2/2. When this location is changed, double this card's power. I want this card in the game right now. Of all the designs from my first 20 card set, this has to be my second favorite. We'll go over my first favorite in this video as well. I really wanted a card that rewards you for changing the location. At the time, we had plenty of cards that changed locations. We had Scarlet Witch, Rhino, and to some extent Quake. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But there was never a reason to run multiple of these cards in your deck, and I wanted a reason that you would actually want to go out of your way to change the location, especially because changing the location can be risky, especially with a card like Scarlet Witch. So I wanted there to be some upside to doing so. Now, I wasn't sure at the time whether or not the game would consider Quake, quote-unquote, changing the location, but today I don't think they would. If you played Bombshell middle and then you played Quake middle, I don't think that Bombshell would get buffed because the location's moving, not changing, unless you just wanted to make an exception for Bombshell, which would also be fine, I think. There's also a way you could probably reword Bombshell to incorporate Quake's effect or to accommodate Quake. One thing I do want to mention while we're talking about Bombshell is that I do think an unrevealed location is quote-unquote changing when it is revealed. So playing this in an unrevealed location would boost her to full power. One more thing I want to mention about Bombshell, I'm actually adding this after I've already edited the video, is that Bombshell has a really cool interaction with Storm. If you play Bombshell on 2 and then Storm on 3, the location is changing first when you change it to flooding, and then it changes again when it changes to flooded. So if you go 2 Bombshell, 3 Storm, and you did all of that on an unrevealed location, Bombshell's going to 4, 8, 12 just off of that 2-card combo. Now, if you don't do it on an unrevealed location, it's only going to 8, but that's still pretty cool, right? Clea. Clea is a 2/3. When a card is moved here, move this one location in the direction it came from. So if you were to play a Nightcrawler, and then you would have played Clea, and then you would have moved Nightcrawler onto the Clea location, Clea would simply move in the direction that Nightcrawler came from. This is just not a card that movement needed either at the time or even today. That's not to say that this card doesn't work, but if I was to print a movement card, this would not be the one I would want printed. With that said, if she was a bigger card, maybe like a 4/6 or even a 4/7 with this exact same effect, I think that she would have a significantly better upside, and perhaps maybe she would be actually a practical card for movement. Or maybe she could have some additional text that reads give +1 power to the location she ends up on or something like that, but that's a lot of text for a Marvel Snap card now, so probably another card that can be designed with a similar effect that gets the same goal accomplished, but this card was certainly not finished. There was other things we needed to do to this card to make it more practical. But the concept is there, I think. Maggot. I actually really like this card. Maggot is a 2/2 on reveal, infect the opponent's deck. This gains +2 power when an infected card is played. I still really like this design. Disincentivizing the opponent from playing certain cards without outright denying those cards is pretty cool. Perhaps he scales a little bit too quickly, maybe +2 power is a bit too strong, but the concept is still absolutely one I'm in favor of. Hopefully we see this design space explored in Marvel Snap. Moving on to Spider-Girl, the second last card we're going to talk about. She is a 2/1 on reveal, return a 2-cost card to the owner's hand. Today I already feel like moving the opponent's cards feels bad. Bouncing them would feel a little unnecessary. We have cards like Polaris, Arrow, Magneto that accomplish similar goals. They effectively remove the cards from the important location, which might as well be bouncing them in a lot of cases. At the time of me designing this though, cards like Morbius, Collector, and to some extent even Bucky Barnes were completely dominating the game. Spider-Girl was a premature countercard to a meta that would end up solving itself. There's a lesson to be learnt there at the very least. That's not to say the card wouldn't work outside of that meta, but of course my mind was altered by the meta of the time, and if I had been in charge and I had printed this card, I think I would have been wrong for doing so. Alright, the final card we're going to talk about today, we left my favorite one for last, and that's Peni Parker. Peni Parker is a 2/0 that reads on reveal, add Spider to your hand. Spider is a 0/1 token with the effect ongoing. If Peni Parker's location has 15 or more power, this has +5 power. Now today I think I would tweak some of these numbers to make the card more competitive because honestly I think this card would suck, but I really do love this concept. I wanted to make a card that had both synergy with on reveal and ongoing. Perhaps you could run Wong to get 2 copies of Spider, or perhaps you could even run Onslaught as well, or maybe both, so that you could go Wong into Peni Parker and then on turn 6 play Onslaught Spider to completely dominate that location. Heck, maybe it's even an Omega Red deck as well. You go Zabu on 2, at some point you play Omega Red either on 3 or 4, on 5 you play Wong, Peni Parker, on 6 you play Spider, Onslaught, Spider again. I also think it's a little funny that the past version of me made a 0 power card, while today my favorite deck is a Jane Foster Mr. Negative deck that this would just absolutely plug right into. Obviously I had no idea what Jane Foster would be at the time. In fact, Jane Foster was a completely different card when she was data mined back then. So yeah, there you go. That's my 10 custom cards, my first 10 custom cards. Which of the cards I went over today were your favorite? Honestly, you don't have much to choose from. I think the top 3 have to be like Bombshell, Maggot, Peni Parker, right? There's no way any of the other ones make the top 3. Oh, maybe Hercules. I could see you being a Hercules fan. But that's it from me. I hope you were able to enjoy this video, despite some of my questionable designs that I made very early on. If you did enjoy this video, I'd appreciate you dropping a like, help the algorithm and all that. Keep being awesome, and I'll catch you in the next one.